If you've ever found yourself chasing a loss, or spending more time and money than you can afford on gambling, then you might have a gambling problem. In a world full of temptation, it can be difficult to maintain control. And fighting addiction can be really tough for you and your loved ones. Gamban can remove temptation by blocking your devices from accessing gambling websites and apps, wherever you are in the world. Easy to install and non-intrusive, Gamban is a helpful tool for tackling gambling addiction. Gamban can help you get back on your feet and give you the time you need to enjoy the more important things in life.
Warning, this show may be triggering for anybody experiencing gambling-related harm. Please watch cautiously. We speak from our experiences only. Please seek professional help for a gambling addiction. Good evening. It's Friday, June 3rd, and this is the Bet Free Life. My name is Brian, and I last placed a bet July of 2014.
Of course, you nail it the first time. I'm Christina. I last placed a bet March 6th of 2021, and I think Brian just took my job.
No, we like to. We're partners. We take each other's jobs all the time
and remind each other to press record.
Yes, that was a close one.
So, what have you been up to in the recovery world?
My day job is full of recovery world now. I won't say specifically what it is, but I'm a peer specialist with regard to gambling addiction. So that has been taking most of my time. So I haven't put out as many podcasts as you know, because people are asking you where I am because
Yes.
I'm not on social media. And so that's been taking up my time. I have a baby due anytime now. So hopefully it's not during this show. And that's what I've been up to. What about yourself?
I've been doing a lot. I think some days it feels
You're
like
generally doing a lot.
I do a lot. But I did do a really cool thing today. I was able to speak to a group of clinicians who are working towards gambling recovery and helping those in the gambling recovery field.
Oh, that's great.
And that was the first time I've done that in that kind of capacity. I've done panels and things like that. But that was really great. The questions they asked, I really felt like I was a true part of like helping somebody that's going to help somebody that's going to help somebody. I'm a big fan of that ripple effect. And especially when it comes to gambling harm. And it was really interesting how, they all kind of had this same consensus that a lot of the gambling harm focused on younger men, because that's kind of where a lot of the issue is right now, with sports betting growing. And so it was interesting to be able to give them a perspective from a female. And I'm like, hey, we're here. We're struggling. Don't forget about us. And so it was really great to be able to have that conversation with them. So feeling very, very good about that.
Yeah, I feel like the online gambling, the sports betting, everyone forgets about all the casino gamblers and all those people like myself and I believe our guest who are sitting on machines with an addiction and pressing a button, and nobody really paid attention to us then, and they don't seem to be paying attention to us now. So
right.
Hopefully we can scream a little louder and get them to pay attention. And that sounds like that's what you were doing.
I am so very happy that I have my friend Rachel on tonight to talk about gambling and women and, different ways of recovery. And so I'm just really excited to have her on. Hi, Rachel.
Hello, good evening. I'm Rachel, compulsive gambler. My last bet was March 4th, 2020.
Thanks for being here, Rachel. We really appreciate it.
Well, and thanks for doing what you're doing. I think it's very, very important. I've seen several of them now and good information, good guests. a lot of good information for people that are wanting to know more and or help themselves or help someone they know. This evening, I was asked if I would share a little bit about my story. And so I will just start off by saying that the first time I ever placed a bet was in 2003. I went to a machine and put a 20 in and almost lost it all and won, part of it back and bought a t-shirt and left and went, well, that was rather stupid. Why do people do this? I don't get it, but the second time was a girls' trip and I actually won, which, as we know, is not really a good thing for those of us that are become compulsive gamblers. And it started out as something that I did with friends. And, eventually, though, it becomes something that you may go with a friend, but you might not see that friend for hours and hours because you're probably not going to play next to each other or the same type of machine. So it did. It happened pretty quickly that I moved from just a gambler to money really had no meaning once I was in a casino, and playing, all night. As we know, you're not going to pass out like an alcoholic. You're not going to, whatever. You can sit and press that button until dawn comes, and you're still going to be there. And I was. So that was, started getting bad by 2010. So it took a little while, but once I was kind of interested, it went full force. And I live in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma has many, many, many casinos. At the time where I was living, within 30 miles, I had 4. So, and one was right by Walmart. So all you had to tell your family was, I'm going to Walmart, because it was basically in the same parking lot. So, it was pretty crazy. But I, after my divorce, my son went back and forth with a week with his dad and a week with me. And so when I didn't have him, because I did start off responsibly, I would gamble, but I never gambled when he was at home. I started realizing by 2010 that it was a problem. It was definitely a money problem. There was times that there wasn't that much food in the house. There was times that I was trying to beat any bill, getting the electric cut off, getting the phones cut off. And I was just moving money around from place to place, taking out, up to 10 payday loans, the ridiculous ones that are, at exorbitant rates. And even went to court on 1 or 2 of them because, of course, I got behind on them. And so I realized I have a problem. Now, interestingly enough, I was still working and I was still being professional at work, but at night that was not the case at all. I realized that for me, 2 things had happened. One, my mother had a stroke, and I was trying to spend as much time with her as I could and trying to get her out and doing things with her. I also, the 2 men that I dated after my divorce, both died of prostate cancer. And I helped with both of them, one actually living there and taking care of him and his sons. And so gambling became my reward. If I'd spent hours taking care of someone, I would go to the casino and I didn't have to think. I didn't have to think about IVs or diapers or chemo or anything. So I was absolutely an escape gambler. I didn't want anybody to talk to me. I just wanted to go and get away from having to think. And since as it happened, all three, my mom and the two men, died different years. And I started really looking for help because I realized I was not dealing with grief well. I was turning to the casino. I actually had a counselor and tried for 2 years to go inpatient before I actually finally was able to. And that was only through Oklahoma Problem and Compulsive Gambling. Wiley Harwell finally okayed my going to CORE at Shreveport. And so I went to CORE. Now it's 28 days, but when I went, it was 36 days. And CORE is in Louisiana. Louisiana was smart. When they brought in gambling, they said, oh, if you're going to have gambling, then we're going to also, fund inpatient treatment for our state residents. Now, Oklahoma paid for me to go, and, ironically, with tribal money from casino earnings. And I went for my 36 days. When I left CORE, I went a year and a half. I really, I got very involved. I actually tried to start, GA in my small town, but in a year I only had 5 people and never at the same time. So I finally gave up and went, well, it's not going to happen. And within a couple of months of my doing that, I was back myself. So, I think CORE is an excellent program. And I think that I learned a lot there. And it is wonderful to be in a group like that, where when you say something, everyone knows what you're saying and can relate. And met some excellent people and excellent counselors, and some that I still talk to this day. So I give them a lot of kudos, but I would want people to be prepared. You are going to go back into infancy, and you are going to be treated like a child. I look at it this way. When I went to CORE, I was at the infancy of my recovery. And I deserved to be treated like a child because I was not taking care of myself. So giving up my cell phone and only being allowed to have $5 on me in a week, and, alarms being set at 10 o'clock at night, and, not even being allowed to have a glass of water by my bedside, were things I was willing to accept. And the fact that there were chores, because the patients keep the place clean. I looked at it as an investment in my gambling sobriety. And I think most everybody there did too. I do know one lady left because she felt like, I'm an adult. Well, I knew I needed it. I knew I needed intensive. And so I was very willing to do that. And at CORE, you don't cook. They actually cook for you. And they just, you come together and you eat together. And hopefully you like what they made for dinner. So that was in 2015. And that was my first experience. And apparently I have something for odd years. I don't think of myself as a completely stupid person, but apparently I am really dense on learning how to quit gambling, because I also did 2017 and 2019 at Alchemist. If you're not familiar with Alchemist, it's in Prescott. Don't say Prescott. It's Prescott, Arizona.
I've only ever said Prescott.
Me too. Thank you for clarifying that. Oh my goodness.
Oh, they're very picky about that.
That Rick Benson's going to be mad at us for saying press.
Oh, yes, Rick would. Rick would. So I had two experiences at Alchemist. The first time I went because I had insurance that could cover it, and I stayed 30 days. And it's a good program if you are needing something that gives you a little bit more freedom. There's television if you go to Alchemist, you don't get to watch television at Core because they have books and assignments, and you're writing your autobiography and you're doing all this, studying and working on yourself there. Whereas at Alchemist, you're allowed to watch television. I was allowed to walk to the local Circle K and get some iced tea, and no one was following me or anything. So there's a little bit more freedom to that. So I think both are good programs. I just think Core is possibly much more structured. At Core, if they said you're meeting at 9:00, you're meeting at 9:00. At Alchemist, it might be 9, it might be 9:10, but it's still going to be a good person counselor leading you through some activities and learning a lot more about yourself.
Can I pause you here?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if I have this correct, you went to Core in 2015, Alchemist in 2017, and Alchemist in 2019.
Yes.
So between 2015 and 2017, what happened to bring you back to gambling? Because I as much as they're hard to talk about, I think talking about relapses is just so incredibly helpful. I myself relapsed a handful of times as well. And it's hard to understand because you have all the tools, you know exactly that you shouldn't gamble and you know what to do. And yet that pull is so strong that you still get brought back into gambling. In general, at least in my case, I shouldn't say generally, in my case, with each relapse came just a progression of harm where the harm was even just worse exponentially than the time previous.
Most definitely. As I said, when I left Core, I did have a 1.5 years of gambling sobriety. Once I stopped trying to start GA and trying to be involved in a community, I didn't have other resources. I was going to AA, even though that wasn't what I was dealing with, but they were nice enough to welcome me in because it was a 12-step program. But that doesn't really work for what I was dealing with. So there was not anyone at the time in my small town trained as a gambling counselor. There was not GA. I only knew 1 or 2 other people that had ever tried to quit in my town, and they'd all gone back. So pretty quickly after I quit trying, I was back. And as you said, I, of course, went back and started gambling at the higher money limits that I was at when I left. Immediately doing lots and lots of damage, immediately gambling all night long, and adding a progression. I mean, I'd had a 1.5 years to kind of get my finances somewhat together, but, easily within 2 months, I had blown that completely. That was all gone. And as a teacher, you only get paid once a month. So if I go and, blow all that on day one, I've got to figure out what the heck I'm going to do for the next 29 days. Because I haven't covered rent, I haven't covered food, I haven't covered anything, and that money's gone. So, I knew that I needed help. And so within, it was about 6 months from the relapse to the point where I found Alchemist and talked to Rick and was was headed to Arizona. So I had done a lot of damage. In fact, when I got back from Alchemist the first time, I'm just very blessed that I had a landlord that would work with me, because I owed him 3 months rent and I didn't have it. I mean, I should have been out on the street without, but fortunately he was a very, very nice man.
What made you had gone to an inpatient facility? What made you think that the answer then that second time was another inpatient facility?
I knew I needed something intensive. I knew I needed something that was more than going and seeing a gambling counselor once a week, which I didn't even have at that time in that town, but there was one in Tulsa, and I had been trying as best I could to see her. But that wasn't enough. I knew I needed more. And so I talked with, that time I went on my insurance, and teachers are off in the summer. So that's why I ended up going, my Junes were my, and I'm being flippant, but I'm not meaning to. They were my times to go to treatment. And so back I went. I knew I needed more. And while I was there, I would build up a lot of strength. But, you had someone on before that talked about the fact that they do a great job while you're there, but they don't always do a great job to prepare you to walk back into your surroundings where you were before. And, I left again and went back to the same place that had no resources for me. And I think the second time I didn't even last 2 months, I would say, before I was back at the casino again. And I've tried things. I've banned myself. That doesn't keep me from going. I've banned, and I've had security come get me and walk me to the little office, and they're way too nice, because they cashed my tickets, which they shouldn't have done, and just had me sign something that said I realized I was not supposed to be on the property, and then escorted me off the property.
They gave you the money?
They gave me the money.
Oh my goodness.
Which in my mind, they should not have done, but
They're not supposed to. They're supposed to donate it, I think. But I do want to ask you something. All this was prior to Zoom, right? Zoom
Yes.
wasn't really a resource at the time going through that. I just wanted to point that out, what a huge resource Zoom is these days, and what an amazing change that's made in the recovery community.
absolutely.
This video being filmed on Zoom at the moment.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And I do have a question. When you talk about those relapses, like you made it a year and a half, what was it specifically? Was it just the stress of certain events that kind of, or was it just like, were you white knuckling it a lot of the time? And it just kind of like, when you made it a year and a half and you relapsed, was it just life, and you just want it, or was it like a specific event that kind of pushed you towards it? You don't have to be specific. I'm just curious if it was just a combination of things, or if it was like specific things.
It was a combination of things. There wasn't a specific thing. Of course, since I, had life stressors, and, it just seemed the normal thing to do, the natural thing to do when life became stressful again. And so I would head back. And if I banned myself locally, then I would drive further. That was all there was to that.
Yeah.
If I banned myself in town, then I needed to go to another town. I wish I had an exact answer for you for that, even for myself, because I don't have that magic thing of this happened on a Thursday and I went to gamble on Friday. That would be nice to know, but it's not there. It's not there. As I said, I'm apparently a very slow learner in this process. But what it has made me do is look and find a vast amount of sources and resources for helping with gambling addiction. Each time I started looking more and, finding Broke Girl Society, and then finding, like you said, there was Zoom, and, we were staying in houses a little bit more. And so last year I decided to do a 12-step, an 8th-month 12-step program with a group from the United States and England and Ireland. And we met once a week, and we had all these things that we wrote on, and then you could only read what you wrote. And then at the end, if you wanted to comment on some common themes that came out, you could. But it was a lot of work, and it was pretty in depth, and it was Zoom, but it still kept me very connected, which I didn't have at the beginning. I also would say that after 2019, I moved to Tulsa, which had a meeting every day. Now, I would say originally I probably did 4. I didn't do every day, but I did a fair amount of meetings and connected with a number, with people. I just felt like I had to do that. And I do. The rest of my family is here except for my daughter. So I just said, okay, I'm gonna go where there are more resources because I need them, and this is important. Otherwise, I honestly, at that time, was sitting and telling myself, I don't think I could survive another relapse. If I relapse again, that's it. I won't make it. I just won't make it. I mean, I was doing so much to my health. I mean, I have high blood pressure and staying up all night. I would feel my body and I'd still play. I don't know how much ridiculous diet soda I drank, but I now have ulcers. And my guess is that didn't help whatsoever. I was just doing so much damage, and then living all the time in the daytime, being professional, playing like this wasn't happening at all, and playing like financially everything was fine in my world, even though I had to decline sometimes going to lunch with friends because I didn't have any money. There was no way I could pay for lunch, So It was like I had 2 different worlds going on, and the collision was going to kill me.
I relate to that so much, especially the health part, because that's one thing I've really been struggling with my health lately is because I didn't take care of myself when I was gambling for all those years. I have ulcerative colitis, I have diabetes, and, it's been really hard for me lately. I've really, really been struggling with my health and trying to get it back in check and just kind of understanding what it's done to my body, and that, things are just forever going to be changed because I didn't take care of myself for all those years. And, I think I was just writing a post earlier that'll be up later, but I really just kind of thought back on I don't struggle with the money I lost. I don't. That's not something I've ever struggled with. I struggle with the time I lost, but now this is kind of something new. I've grieved a lot of the things that I've lost. I've worked through a lot of that process, but this health thing, especially as kind of new issues are coming up for me, I'm really struggling with that. And it's
I am too.
Something new, and it's scary.
I now have a cardiologist, which as of this last month, and I'm on heart medication, and I guess we'll know next month whether I'm having, continuing on some medication or doing a heart cath or doing an open heart to repair a valve. I don't know what it's going to be. But most definitely, taking care of my health was the last thing on my mind when I was gambling. I never thought about that. And I did horrible things to myself. And driving home, it's that I kind of wish the car would go off the road and hit a tree, because then I wouldn't have to ever explain it to anybody. But, but I made it home, and I don't know.
Would you eat while you were at the casino? Because I would never eat.
Never.
I wouldn't go to their little free buffet or any of that. I'd never ate.
No, if you can't, you can see my face is round, but you can't see, I took that COVID 10 pounds as a,
That's okay.
I took this staying in 10 pounds as a challenge and said, I can beat that 10, so it's also obvious if you know me, if I've lost weight, I'm gambling. If I'm gaining weight, I'm not gambling. Now I am exercising more. The last 2 months has really made me sit up and pay attention because, my health is definitely being affected. So I'm doing a lot more walking, a lot more core exercises, trying to stay active. But I did a lot of damage. And I think, Christina is talking about women. When I was inpatient, yes, there were men there. And yes, there were young men there as well. But I was also in treatment with several women in their 80s, which is not unusual apparently these days. You get to be an empty nester, and then you're alone, and there's the loneliness, and this fills that for some people. The one thing I can say that I was very blessed with, because I did so much financial damage, but I could not get to my pension. I don't know. I've met so many people that have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in pension and will now have to try to either work the rest of their lives or try to live on Social Security, which I don't think is going to be viable. So it was a blessing that I couldn't get to mine, because I would have spent it. It would have been gone. If they had let me get to it, I would have spent it.
Yeah. Can I ask you some of the different, so you came out of Algamus in 2019, and that's been your recovery journey since, right? What are the different things that you've tried? Because I'm an all pathways kind of recovery person, like try everything. If something isn't working, just keep trying to build it and create it and find what works for you. So can we kind of transition and talk about different things that you've tried for recovery that's really kind of helped this time?
Certainly.
Because now you're 24 months?
20, I'll be 27 if we make it to the 5th. So I never count a day that I haven't done yet. But absolutely, for me, I needed to look at more pathways. And as I said, each time with relapse, I looked into more resources. At the present time, I do a GA one night a week. One night a week, I go to what's called White Bison, which is a Native American well variety program. And it's for all addictions, no matter what. And right now we're working through the steps, and it's a little different, working with a Native group. And incorporated in that has also brought me back to the sweat lodge. And so with the new moon each month, I go back and sweat, which to me is very, very therapeutic. And where I think my higher power has strengthened me. To me, my higher power is my ancestry. I truly believe in generational trauma with Native Americans, but I also believe in generational resilience. And so with that, the Sweat Lodge for me is a place where I can have that experience and gain that strength. So, I find that I really enjoy the time I spend with other Native people. And then I was doing GA twice a week, but most recently I've come back to the Broke Girl Society because I'm finding I do like to have a women's group. There is a connection, and it's nothing against men. It's just that there is a connection, and many of us have gone through, like you said, there's going to be hormonal changes. Many of us have had children. Many of us have worked outside of the house and come home and worked in the house. So there's just some things that we can very much relate to easily. So that has worked well for me. Finding the group where I was doing Zoom with people around the world. And for me, finding somebody that's looking at things just a little bit differently is not a threat. I think GA is a wonderful program. However, I don't think it's the only program. And for me, I needed something that was more feminine and something that was more native. And so I went and found those. So I would say to anyone, find what works for you. Don't try one thing and go, well, that didn't work, I can't quit. I mean, I'm living proof that you can do that for years and be completely stupid, about it. I knew, and I know better. But definitely keep looking. I mean, the first time I saw the women's book for working the 12 steps, it had fear in it, which was not in the GA material at all. And yet fear to me is huge. Yeah. And as a woman, definitely. So I do think that there's a match for people. You just have to find those matches. And for me, I like to have even the variety in the matches. I know I can't do it by myself. I'm adamant about that now. I have to connect with other people. But it doesn't have to just, for me, it doesn't just have to be GA people.
So was the difference in your current sobriety from gambling, is the difference now the multiple pathways versus
I believe
before?
So.
Yeah.
I believe so. I've found connections and to many people, and I just think that for me, I had to do the research, and I had to have the different pathways. And that was not an eloquent answer. I apologize, but
we're not eloquent people.
I love how much you've advocated for yourself. And I think that that's a really key point for anybody that's trying to build recovery, is advocating for yourself and your needs. And, stepping outside the box if the box isn't working, and that's what I I love most about your story, you know, is just how much you advocated for yourself.
You're saying advocated, and it's the first, I hadn't looked at it that way. To me, it was just curiosity and, well, I want to know what else is out there. But thank you, because I guess I did advocate for myself.
Well, I like the word curiosity too, because I say that a lot to people I'm talking to. Be curious about what's available, you know, but I look at it in all aspects, like you're advocating for yourself, for the life that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think that's a lot of the difference too, between, you know, a lot of the female male kind of transitions too, is kind of women kind of need sometimes a little bit more, especially spiritually or emotionally. And I'm not saying, you know, not saying generally, I'm just saying, well, generally, you know, and there are some men that need more too. And they find us at the Broke Girl Society, and we're happy to have them. Nothing but the kindness there. And so it's just, yeah, it's fantastic. I was just going to share a quick story, not to like throw everything off, but when you talked about Walmart being close to the casino, like it's hard in Oklahoma because I'm in the Tulsa area too, but it's hard in Oklahoma not to not have a casino and a Walmart in the same town. But this one lady was telling me the story that she would tell her spouse that she was going to Walmart. Same thing, going to Walmart. And she actually kept empty Walmart bags in her car with random stuff in it. So when she got home, she would carry in these bags with like a pair of old shoes and be like, I was at Walmart just tooling around, you know. And she said, I could be gone for 3 hours. And there was no question as long as I had those bags. You know, I was just like, okay, all right, never thought about that. Like, you know, I was actually disappointed I didn't think about that, but it was just interesting. You know, when she said that, I was like, that's clever. That's the willpower that we will go to gamble. You know, they always say people that are struggling with gambling have no willpower. That's absolutely not true. We have tremendous willpower when it comes to gambling. It's just turning it off that we don't. So.
I'm sorry. My thing popped up that it wanted to do something on the computer. No, and in Tahlequah, the parking lot's even connected. I mean, that's how close it was. You could park actually in the Walmart parking lot and walk over to the casino. And back then, you know, that particular casino also allowed 18-year-olds. So,
oh yeah, some of them do. Some of them do. I always thought it was 21, but there are some that's 18.
The tribal casinos in Michigan were 18.
Really?
Yeah, that's where I started, at a tribal casino when I was 18.
Well, and I know my son has gambled, and it does concern me. However, you know, he's 29 now, so I have to step back and say, okay, you know, how are you doing? Do you think you're gambling too much? Do you think, you know, because just because I became a gambling addict doesn't mean that he will. However, I would much prefer him not to spend any time there, but that's probably, you know, that may be unrealistic, but I'm just checking in every now and then just to make certain. And it is one thing I do have guilt for is I was supposed to be the role model. I'm the parent. And yet I'm the one that was relapsing and relapsing and relapsing. Now I have made amends with him and he has forgiven me and just, you know, well, of course, Mom, you know, it's, you know, I know what your struggle has been. And I know every time you were trying, you know, but it's still hard that, you know, I'm my kid's role model and I was not role modeling well.
I don't ask everybody this who comes on this show who has lived experience, but you seem like somebody who maybe you'll have an answer one way or the other. Do you hold a grudge, or do you hold the casino responsible in any way? Or maybe a better way of asking this is, do you think there's something that the casino establishment itself could do better to help people like yourself who are susceptible to the addiction?
Well, on the first part, I mean, I know the research. I know they're pumping oxygen in. I know they're even the pattern on the carpet on the floor has research behind it to keep you gambling. I mean, that I've read the studies. I've done the research, but I did this. I personally don't hold a casino responsible for what I did. Could they have addressed and helped me? Yes. The people that in the casinos, the cashiers, the people, they knew me. And especially, when you're one of 10 people in there at 3 a.m, they knew who I was.
And I'm sure all 10 were there gambling responsibly at 3 a.m.
That's right. Oh, definitely. Well, and, the most embarrassing thing before I actually was sharing my story and was very out and open about it, I had one of my students run into me at about 1:30 in the morning one time and just looked at me in absolute shock, of that I was there at 1:30 in the morning. And I was mortified. I was absolutely mortified because my worlds had collided then. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to keep his respect and the professionalism that I had in the daytime. I was blessed that it didn't seem to matter to him, but it really made me go, okay. But all it made me do was move to another town to gamble.
Yeah.
Gamblers, I think, are actually fairly smart, or we can figure out ways around things. It's interesting that you asked the question also, because gambling also paid for me to go to treatment. With all the tribal casinos that are in Oklahoma, they have a pact with Oklahoma Problem and Compulsive Gambling. And so it is tribal money that actually sends you to CORE or sends you to Alchemist.
I would argue that you paid for you to go, though.
Well, that's very possible. But I would also say that being tribal, I also know that some of that money goes to schools. I worked at a 100% Native American school. And I know that a fair amount of our funding came from that, from casino money. So it's its own, I don't know that it's a catch-22, but it's its own paradox that I know that the tribes benefit from the casino money and tribal members benefit, but yet it may be tribal members that I'm seeing there at 3 a.m. that are spending, the last of their money. So it's hard. It's hard to balance out. It really is. One of the places where I went to treatment, I had a young man walk up and shake my hand the very first, 5 minutes and say, your people owe me a lot of money. And I just looked at him and I said, well, your people owe me a lot of land. So
that was quick. That was a quick comeback too. Like, mic drop.
I just took a sip.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it to you like that.
My late night Coca-Cola almost came out all over the desk.
I love it. I love it when you can throw him off.
Holy cow. That's a great answer. Kudos.
So that's my answer to your question. I don't know if I 100% answered it, but that's my answer.
You gave great answers. No, that was, I like to check in. I'm curious. I always am curious who has opinions on the industry part, because I do. So I want to check with other people sometimes, but it's not always appropriate. Some people aren't concerned with that, and some people like to keep the weight on their own shoulders. And I understand that. I think as a whole, the industry could be doing a lot better to at least acknowledge the help that exists instead of putting it all tiny anywhere they get the chance. Put it big and fat on the wall, have a window, close your doors at 2 a.m. These are things that I wish they would do, but.
Well, I agree with you. I think they could do a better job. And I do agree that there are things that are put into place to keep us there once we're in the door. As I was watching one of the programs, definitely the advertisements. Now, I don't get those anymore, but only because I moved. Had I not moved, I would, even if I'd asked for them to stop. And that would have been something I probably would have addressed, was still getting flyers when I had banned myself. That's rather stupid.
Yeah, you definitely shouldn't be getting anything when you ban yourself.
Oh,
I'm not anymore. I got one shortly after I banned myself, but I just kind of was like, well, there might have been a time.
And you both can remind the audience again, banning yourself in Oklahoma, is it you have to go to facility by facility to take yourself out, or is it statewide, or is it regional?
You can do both. Originally, when I banned myself, I banned myself from one tribal casino that was in my town. And originally I did it for a year, which, at that point in time, I thought, well, it's just a financial problem. I'll take a year off. Well, I took a year off, and a year and a day I was back. But you can go ahead and ban yourself statewide now. I will tell you that there's a couple of tribes that don't recognize that. And since they're sovereign, they don't have to. I won't tell you which tribes, but.
Right. Well, I was just thinking I might mention them, but then I was like, well, I don't want to let anybody know that who doesn't know.
Right.
It's probably best that they remain unnamed. Yes.
That's what I decided as well.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Rachel, for sharing all of this. It was very interesting. And I'm glad that you are almost 27 months into recovery now. I think I don't know, maybe you know better, but do you hold the record for inpatient days?
Brian.
Because I mean,
I don't know.
I love that you did it again and you thought, no, I need to go back and do it again. People would say like, oh, it didn't work the first time, I'm not going to go do it a second time. But you said, no, it was good. I need to get back in that same environment. And you did it. And eventually it worked for you to where you knew what to do once you got out of that situation, and how to go about the outside world once you were out.
Kind of like a foundation.
Through the times I built up enough knowledge and enough connections that when I got out, I knew what I was going to do. And so I will also say that I also know many people that went once and never gambled again. I just happen to not be one of those people. So.
Well, Christina and I have yet to run out of people to talk to about this. Between 2 podcasts and this show, we have yet to run out of people. So seems to still be a lot of people out there in harm's way. So.
Well, I do have a hard time finding women to come on the podcast. So if you're somebody that watches this.
But we all know they're out there, but talking about it is a different animal than being out there and in recovery.
True.
Well, and I understand that. I made a decision that I would definitely talk. And I also do some, I go back to the university and present each semester to future counselors, because I want them to think, not just be thinking about drugs and alcohol, but I want them also to realize that gambling, especially with how many casinos we have here, they will run into gambling addicts.
That's fantastic. I didn't know you did that. That's great.
Yeah, talking about your story helps so many people. So thank you for doing that.
Well, and thank you for having me. You two, I think, are making a huge difference. So kudos to you too.
Well, thank you. I love that we both do a podcast, and then we decided to do this thing on video to sort of podcasts are great and I love it. But when you can put something visual up there for people to see, it tends to attract more people than just listening to something. So I'm really proud of what Christina and I have done here.
I am too.
And I thank you for adding to it, because without voices like yourself, we don't get to do this. So thank you.
Thank you too.
And Christina, I believe you're up to take us out.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Rachel. I appreciate it. So let me do the hashtag. Talking helps. Brian, put it right there. And for Brian, I'm Christina. Wait, is that right?
That's right.
I can't even do the end.
You did it. You did it.
Yeah, there you go. So for Brian, I'm Christina. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your night or day or morning.
And then you are the one who generally starts waving, and then I will. So there we go.
We're going back to normal next one.